Please be seated. Good morning, Dean Almeida, Registrar Pierce, distinguished guests, members of the faculty, members of the graduating class, and ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 2017 commencement exercises for the Executive Masters in Leadership, DC Public Schools leaders. My name is Lonnie Smith, and I'm a Senior Assistant Dean for Executive Degree Programs at the McDonough School of Business. Today, we assemble the honor candidates for the degree of Executive Masters in Leadership. We will begin our ceremony with an invocation delivered by Reverend Ray Kemp, Senior Research Fellow at Georgetown University. Following the invocation, we will hear from Professor Douglas McCabe. He will read the university charter. Please stand for the invocation.
Lord, 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 my Lord, what a morning. You're going to hear us all shout, child, there's a new day coming about. 20 sisters and brothers pulled themselves and each other together, yes, under the power of sharing struggles and visions of what has been and what will be. There's a new day dawning here. We're thankful for what these graduates have brought to one another, to Georgetown, to their schools, and to their communities. When the founder of this process says this cohort has come together like no other, you just better believe. They don't stand for no mess, and you better not mess with them. They can take shots and do shots. All for the love of the children. They can bring babies into this world, and they have, and they can take responsibility for the care and the nurturing of the children DC is proud to call its own. We have a recognized principal of the year here who would be the first to say she is in the company of 19 other principals of each and every day who show us what servant leadership is all about. How many hugs do you need? How many do you need? I learned to hug in Whittier myself in 1946. A special thank you to family and school communities who've made this day possible. A big thank you to leaders, faculty, and the Georgetown community, sung and unsung heroes all, to founders and to public and charter school leaders. This marks a new beginning. Let us celebrate this day and these proceedings in the joy and in the spirit of this season. These are they who came to lead and serve. Make way. God is good. Amen?
Please be seated. In 1815, Georgetown's president, Reverend John Grassi of the Society of Jesus, asked our first student, then Congressman William Gaston, for whom this hall is named, to present a petition for a federal charter. The bill passed the House and the Senate in February 1815 and was signed by the president on the same day the Senate ratified the Treaty of Peace ending the War of 1812. Accordingly, it is our custom to initiate academic ceremonies with the reading of that charter. It reads as follows. An act concerning the College of Georgetown in the District of Columbia, being enacted by the Senate and the House of Representatives of the United States of America in Congress assembled, that it shall and may be lawful for such persons as now are, or from time to time may be, the president and directors of the College of Georgetown within the District of Columbia, to admit any of the students belonging to said college or other persons meriting academical honors to any degree in the faculties, arts, sciences, and liberal professions to which persons are usually admitted in other colleges or universities of the United States, and to issue in an appropriate form the diplomas or certificates which may be requisite to testify to the admission of such degree. Signed, Landon Chevis, Speaker of the House of Representatives. John Gayart, President Pro Tempore of the Senate. Approved. March 1st, 1815, James Madison.
This morning, we are indeed privileged to have two distinguished advocates of education with us. Catherine Bradley is the founding chair of City Bridge Education, a DC nonprofit organization dedicated to incubating, launching, and transforming schools that deliver talent and potential to the inherent in children and especially in the disenfranchised for poverty and race. In addition, we will have Kaya Henderson, who currently serves as a distinguished scholar in residence at Georgetown University. In addition to being a graduate of the Executive Masters in Leadership program and the founder of the DCPS program, Kaya was an integral creator of DCPS and continues to work with all of the cohorts in helping them to establish the true foundation and the meaning of the program. It is my great pleasure to introduce you, Catherine Bradley.
Good morning, everyone. And I am especially happy to see a few friends of very long standing in this class. So congratulations to all of you. So I no longer remember exactly whose idea it was for us to repurpose a gift that we had decided to make to Georgetown toward the launch of this program. Kaya, I think it may have been your idea. It could have been Bart Moore's idea, who's a friend and colleague of long standing of ours at Georgetown. But for whatever reason, it gave us this tremendous privilege of being a very small part of launching this program together with Professor Bees. So what a privilege it has been for me to watch now multiple cohorts of unbelievably talented people go through this program. So a small story from my week this week. I found myself inside City Bridge, the organization where I work this week, teaching some new employees about our enterprise values. And one of those values that I was teaching them about is something we call belief in abundant possibility. And that value is really set, it's about a mindset of really having high expectations and in particular, a real belief in the potential inherent in every single child, regardless of his or her circumstances. So we chose that value because I really believe our field of public education has learned across time that you cannot be successful in this really hard work we do unless we have that very highest of expectations for ourselves, for the beautiful students we have the privilege of working with, and also for the ultimate outcome of our work. But belief in abundant possibility also works on another track. It works for an entrepreneurial instinct, for people whose nature is to create things where there was nothing. And that's what I really think is the beauty of this program. It's the creation of something new, straight from the minds and imagination of Kaya Henderson and Professor Bob Bees. It did not exist before they dreamed it up, and now it has launched many dozens of talented educators toward leadership. So Kaya and Bob, this is hard, they're on opposite sides behind me. Thank you for your belief, not just in the potential of children, but in the ultimate potential of adults to change the lives of those children and to grow into significant leadership. It's been a real privilege for me to be a small part of this program. So thank you all, and congratulations.
Good morning. First, I want to say how happy I am to be here. You folks look really good in your academic regalia, and I'm sure you are breathing the sigh of relief that comes after completing this program, and so congratulations to you. And I want to let you all know how much I appreciate all of the forces that came together to make this happen. In 2010-ish, when I became Chancellor of DC Public Schools, I had a meeting with President DeGioia, who said, "What can we do for you?" And I said, well, really, I want to start this principals program where we train principals in leadership. I had completed the EML program in 2007, so I knew intimately what the contents of the curriculum looked like, and I felt like a lot of the things that we had learned in this leadership program were things that many of our school leaders needed to learn and be able to do. And Jack said, okay, no problem. And I said, really? And it took us about a year or so to make it all work. But thanks in large part to Catherine and David Bradley redirecting their gift for our use, and then a whole host of people, Dean Almeida and others who made it happen. We're here today, and I tell that story to say that anything is possible. As leaders, it's our job to have vision. It's our job to figure out how to negotiate the conditions to make that vision happen, and then to turn that vision into outcomes that impact the schools and the communities that we serve. And the EML program was my dream. It is now my dream come true in the 4th or 5th cohort. And I hope that you all understand that the responsibility that comes with this degree in leadership is one to dream, is one to create, is one to lead. It's not the executive masters in networking with other principals program, right? It is the executive masters in leadership. And I think that at a time in our country where we find ourselves in a state of turmoil and not being really sure about what's going on day to day, I think we have to really remember where power lies. Power lies in the people. Power doesn't lie in the president. Power doesn't lie in the mayor or the chancellor. The power lies in the people who do the work every single day. And so my challenge to you all as you complete this degree is that this is not the end. In fact, this is the beginning. This is the time where we need you to take the skills and the experiences that you've had in the EML program and step up and lead. We are a city that could go either way at this point. Not enough of our children and families are experiencing the kinds of success that we need for them, and you know that because you see it every single day. We're also a city, I think, that still needs to figure out what our vision is for public education. Don't wait for somebody to tell you that. You create it. The most exciting thing about this cohort is for the first time, charter school leaders and DCPS leaders are coming together, learning together, working together, building relationships. And quite frankly, I actually think that that is the answer to the educational vision in our city. And so I challenge you all to take these relationships that you've built, not just with each other, but there are other EML folks, EML alumni in the community, in the community, to get it together and figure out what we're going to do to make sure that we don't go backwards, to make sure that we continue to accelerate for the children and the families that we serve. And for the family members and friends who've been so supportive of these folks through this journey, let me tell you something, working every day and doing graduate school at the same time is more than a notion. And the only way that these folks have gotten through this is because you all have been there supporting them. And so I want to say thank you for that, but let you know that this is just the beginning too, and they're going to need your continued support as they do this really difficult work. And to the academic community that has supported these folks, thank you for giving them the very best of what you know and are able to do. I promise you that they will deliver. I promise you that they will take us to places that we never thought we could go. And so I just want to say thank you for the opportunity. A number of you reached out to me and asked if I would come to the graduation. I literally flew across the country in order to be here because it's just that important to me and because I believe in you. And so congratulations, and let's make it happen.
As you know and appreciate, part of the strength of any degree program is the academic content. It is now my pleasure to introduce to you the program's academic director, who's responsible for the curriculum and other content, Professor Bob Bees. Dr. Bees will now present a few personal reflections and talk about the class's experience they've had over the last 12 months. Now.
Today is a day of celebration and gratitude. We are celebrating you and your accomplishments. We are so grateful to the Walton Family Foundation for their generosity in funding this program, because we would not be having this graduation and celebration without their support. But I'd also like to thank Catherine Bradley for her generous support that got us started 5 years ago. So thank you. Let me begin my comments with these words. What you do matters. You matter. Your EML journey began early last January, a conference center at which Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. had been a guest on more than one occasion, and the location where he began writing his I Have a Dream speech on one visit, and then on another visit, he was organizing the Poor People's Campaign. You walked the same hallways as Dr. King, dreaming about a better future for your students and organizing and mobilizing on their behalf. At Airlie, you crafted a mission statement for the cohort, which you titled Utraque Unum, which you learned from John Pierce as the Georgetown University motto that translates loosely, I don't know Latin, my son does, from 2-1. In that statement, you committed to this mission. We are public school leaders collaborating across sectors who fight for social justice with our diverse community of learners. We will be a model for the nation in dialogue, equity, and innovation. Across this year, you embraced the Georgetown motto and lived out that mission faithfully, from visiting each other's schools, sharing best practices inside and outside of the classroom, engaging in cross-sector innovation projects in collaboration with the Deputy Mayor for Education in her office, to pushing for the establishment of a trauma-informed educator certification, which is part of a new bill to be introduced to the D.C. City Council, and more recently, when the principal of Henley Elementary School on Chesapeake Street Southeast, a DCPS school, shared the news that her school had to have multiple lockdowns and she had to clear the playground of elementary school children because of the continued violence in her neighborhood, it led the principal of Howard University Middle School of Mathematics and Science, just off Georgia Avenue Northwest, a public charter school, to share the news with their students who were moved to write letters of love and concern for the Henley students, and then to visit that elementary school as a show of support from one group of students to another group of students. Across this year, through all these actions and so many others, you are living out the powerful truth of Cornell West. You can't lead the people if you don't love the people. You can't save the people if you don't serve the people. What you do matters. You matter. Let us never forget that your work in schools and for the students is not just education reform. Oh, you're truly doing that. But you are also doing the work of social justice. In doing this work of social justice and doing it together, you are changing the landscape of urban public school education in this beautiful city. Your focus all year has not been on what sector you're from, but how you can best serve all public school students, regardless of race, regardless of age, regardless of social class, regardless of where your students come from, or the language they speak. Your actions have been nothing short of a revolution, truly a revolution that brought forth and is continuing to bring forth innovative practices and pedagogies. But to borrow from Dorothy Day, it has also been a revolution of your hearts and the hearts of your students, your teachers and staff, and the families and neighborhoods of Washington, D.C. But the types of changes you are bringing to your schools, and this city is not without struggles. In facing these struggles, I want you to remember the wisdom of Dr. King. Change does not roll in on the wheels of inevitability, but it comes through continuous struggle. And this struggle is part of transcendence. And one of the great residents of the city, Frederick Douglass, once said, "If there is no struggle, there is no progress." What you do matters. You matter. As you continue your work of social justice to change the life trajectories of your students, to unlock their gifts and talents, to help them achieve their greatness, you will have to stay woke, stay together, stay moving, and stay hopeful. Stay woke. You need to be vigilant in a world that can be indifferent and uncaring, if not at times hostile, to the students you serve. You cannot lower your expectations for any of your students. No, you must keep raising the expectations for all students, because they can do it with your support. As I learned from you this year, all means all. You must always be their advocates, and keep it 100. No, keep it 1,000. Thank you. As Malala reminds us, when the world is silent, even one voice becomes powerful. Stay together, as I have said to you so many times this year. Stand up and never stand alone. You will not achieve mission success alone. You cannot achieve mission success alone. You 20 must stay together. There are 20 more coming next year. And there are 65 that preceded you. It's about together. You are not alone. Always remember the wisdom of the African proverb. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Stay moving. In this work of social justice, you will stumble. You will fall. But get back up. Dust yourself off and keep moving. As Dr. King reminds us, if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. Stay hopeful. Si se puede. Those words of Dolores Huerta, made famous by Cesar Chavez, became a rallying cry for a movement. Always keep them close to your heart. But being hopeful needs to be grounded in a faith, a belief in a better, more just world. As Mary McLeod Bethune reminds us, without faith, nothing is possible. With it, nothing is impossible. Eric, Letitia, Ende, Megan H., Jada, Jake, Makia, Kim, Juan Carlos, Jacques, Tania, Catherine, Justin, Sunday, Karen, Cynthia, Courtney, Megan V., Brittany, and Gina. What you do matters. You matter. Remember, your greatness lies ahead of you and within you. May the force be with you always. Thank you. Thank you. I have the distinct privilege of introducing two class speakers. You should know, the rest of the audience should know, that normally we hand out a ballot and they just pick one. But I came in the classroom and they said, Professor Bies, we've already done it. And I said, this is empowerment. We're going to pick two, one from each sector. I said, brilliant, innovative, awesome. And they picked two. And these two people are Kim Martin from Wilson High School and Jake Lappy from Achievement Prep. And after they get done speaking, they will announce the outstanding professor of the program. So without any further ado, I believe Ms. Kim.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome, family and friends, to the commencement exercises for the Georgetown EML cohort of 2017. I first want to thank my cohort mates for the honor of speaking to you today, though I wasn't always that happy about it when Jake and I were trying to figure out our speeches. And then next, please join me in a round of applause for Dr. Bies, the entire faculty and staff of Georgetown, and for Rashad Hanna for all that you have done to make this a magical year. It's hard to believe that it's been more than 25 years since my first graduation, when I graduated from high school. A ceremony very unlike this event today, in a town very unlike Washington, D.C., and I was headed to Case Western Reserve University. The graduation itself is a blur. I don't remember who spoke, I don't remember my principal's name, and I don't remember most of the details of that day. I certainly can't remember who was the valedictorian. It was not me. The only thing I do remember is the abject fear that gripped my stomach. Sure, I disliked our low-income housing, and I was sometimes embarrassed by using food stamps, and I hated that my last name was sometimes synonymous with something bad, like, well, she is a Martin after all. So what was the problem? Why was I afraid to leave? I should have been headed out of that high school with my head held high, going to Case, never looking back. But instead, I was preparing myself for failure, planning where I would live once I got kicked out of school, working on my safety net, hoping that my boyfriend and my job would still be there when I returned. I did, of course, have this one teacher who told me, you're probably not smart enough for Case. And then another teacher who told me, don't waste any money and don't get any school loans because you won't be able to pay them back. And then there was one teacher who told me, your greatest success is that you're not pregnant. I think you've accomplished your life's mission. So here's the problem. I didn't believe in myself. Even if they did believe in me, I would somehow look for and find in their eyes a glimmer that they didn't believe in me. But the problem was that I didn't believe in myself. Were they waiting for me to fail, I would think? I see it, I would say to myself. I know, even when they said something kind or supportive or encouraging. So there it is, graduates. The hardest battle that you're ever going to find is believing in yourself. If you thought that self-doubt would disappear once we reached a certain age, or once we bought a certain car, or once we got a certain status, or at any other magical point in our lives, let me submit to you today that the battle will probably last the rest of our careers. Think for a moment about the social issues that have impacted our small community in just this 1 year. We've all been passive or active members of a political debate involving poverty, literacy, immigration, inequality, language, race, opportunity, access, and of course, achievement. In EML, we have learned to harness our voice and to tell our stories. We are now graduates of Georgetown University, and that means that we have been exposed to a richly diverse, fully integrated environment informed by Jesuit philosophy, and that alone sets us on a path for making change. We must tell our stories, our knowledge of adversity, hope, struggle, and empathy. And then, fellow graduates, we must, of course, continue to fight. Through our studies, we have learned, as Cecilia Munoz describes, to use our outrage as a fuel for our advocacy. She wrote, I am deeply familiar with that hollow place that outrage carves in your soul. I fed off of it to sustain my work for many years, but it hasn't eaten me away completely, she said, because the hollow place gets filled with other, more powerful things like compassion, faith, family, music, the goodness of the people around me. These things fill me up, and they temper my outrage with a deep sense of gratitude that I have the privilege of doing my small part to make things better. Each of us has the chance to make things better. We might not always want to take it, but I hope you do. Not because we have an obligation to Georgetown, which we do. Not because we owe it to our students or to the less fortunate, which you do. And not because we have a debt to pay to all of those who helped us to get where we are today, and you do. It's because you have an obligation to yourselves, because our individual salvation depends on our collective salvation, because thinking only of ourselves, fulfilling our immediate wants and needs, betrays the experiences and education we've received in this program, because it's only when we put our faith in something larger than ourselves, when we commit to changing the world, that we realize our true potential and discover the role that we'll play in writing the next chapter in the great story of the life of our schools, our communities, our city, and our collective family. Because you've already committed to the path of service, because you've already taken this cause on as your own, I know that you've experienced occasional frustrations and failures. Each of your successes has been marked by imperfections and unintended consequences. There have been times when friends and family have urged you to pursue more sensible endeavors with more tangible rewards. There will be times when you will be tempted to take their advice. You've faced those who have discredited your work, laughed behind your back, and mocked you. Indeed, if you remain on this path, it is certain to happen again. Remember our EML cohort during those times of self-doubt and frustration. Remember, there is nothing naive about your impulse to improve the world. And sometimes all it takes is one more act of service, one blow against injustice to send forth what Robert Kennedy called that tiny ripple of hope. That's what changes the world. That is what life is about. That one act, an act by us, the Georgetown EML cross-sector cohort number 1, the class of 2017. Thank you for listening.
Good morning. Thank you to the faculty of Georgetown University for making us Hoyas and giving us a home over this past year of our journey. Thank you to the distinguished leaders who have spent time with us today to share of their journey and to hand us along in ours. Thank you to the friends and family who have been here to support us. The fact that we have gotten to know each other's stories, the cohort stories throughout the course of this year, means that we've seen the imprint that you have left on each of us. And I can speak for all 20 of us when I say we would not be here without your love and support. Thank you to Dr. Beese for playing the orchestra and taking a group of 20 strangers and creating the environment that was conducive to build. Y'all know I was getting choked up during the bagpipes, but we're going to get through this. Thank you to Dr. Beese for creating the environment that was conducive to build not just a family, but a movement amongst these 20 strangers. And thank you to my cohort, my family. It's an honor to stand before you today when I look out at 20 individuals who I love so dearly and who represent everything right with this city. Now, see, Dr. B's new, but I'm tissued up already. I'm good to go. So I had a speech prepared, and as it always does, life inevitably happened. I was the first one up in my house this morning, and I was enjoying a cup of coffee on the couch. The house was still dark and quiet, and I was just reflecting on this past year. Today is my son's first birthday, our graduation. Give it up for Jacoby. And as I was reflecting on the year and our time together, my dad came out and sat on the couch with me, and we just spent some time enjoying each other's presence. And then he broke the silence and he said, "Jake, I've heard you talk a lot about your mission. I've heard you talk a lot about your life's work and how you're battling against poverty and racism." And he said, "I know that you will be most successful in your work when you lead from a place of freedom, when you lead freely." He took his coffee cup and he pointed across the room to a picture of Dr. King hanging across the living room, and he said, "That was a man who led freely, who led from a place of freedom. He was oppressed, discriminated against. All the odds were stacked against him, but he was free. He knew he was free." That's what you need to do. And as my dad shared those words with me, I thought about how I had seen that in action my entire life, not just from Dr. King, but from every morning when my dad woke up and beat the sun to hit the road for work, to get in a full day's work but still make it to my baseball games on time, work boots and all, then to rush home for a quick bite to eat before he'd head off to another job. I saw it every day of my life when my mom was the first person to be at someone's bedside from her congregation when they went to the hospital, to make sure that those families had meals prepared for their children, that they had rides, that there was someone to care for them in their moment of need. I had those seeds sown in me from early on, those seeds of leadership, those seeds, as Dr. Beese talked about, you can't lead the people if you don't love the people. You can't save the people if you don't serve the people. I saw that in action every day of my life. Those seeds were sown in me, and those seeds were sown in all of us. We are a powerful, powerful cohort. We are the cohort of Principals Martin and Martinez, who showed us that all means all, and every student deserves to take el próximo paso. We are the cohort of Principals Rivas and Riggins, who showed us that in the face of racist immigration policies and in the face of incessant gun violence, schools can be a place, a safe haven of love and joy and learning. We are the cohort of Principals Pritchard and Procope, who have shown us that every single student we serve deserves to know the empowerment and the joy that comes with being able to read. And the way that we will get them there is love, 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 love. You see, we have always been our most powerful when we led not based on some performance management framework or park scores, but when we led freely from our core principles. Not when we were striving for target enrollments, but for moments of engagement. We are a powerful, powerful cohort. Thank you, thank you. No, it helps me out. We are a powerful, powerful cohort. And that is what our city needs right now. Our city needs leadership that will step boldly and freely into our power to give our students what they deserve: a school rejuvenated, a community strengthened, and a city finding its glory. Thank you. And now, Principal Martin and I are honored to reveal the DCPS EML 2017 Outstanding Professor of the Year Award. This is just like the Oscars. We have no idea what name is in here. But I think this entire cohort can agree that there is not a bad option to choose from, and we are excited to find out who will be joining us on stage. You want to read it?
Oh, wow. Of course it was. Okay, should we read it together?
Sure.
1, 2, 3.
It was a tie.
The cohort has selected 2 outstanding professors, Professor Douglas McCabe and Professor Brendan O'Day.
Before we have Professor McCabe come up, Kim and I just want to say it has been the honor of our year to be able to be with these professors, all of them. But everybody remembers those turbocharged simulations from Professor McCabe's class. He led us through some experiences that we will never forget. And I think one of the things that's most powerful about Professor McCabe is that with all his experience, with all his knowledge, whenever he stepped into the room with us, you saw the joy on his face because you knew that he was learning just as much as we were. It was so powerful. So very excited to honor Professor McCabe.
I know that Dr. O'Day can't be here with us today. I'm so heartbroken about that. But I would love to say to Dr. McCabe that some of my finest moments this past year at Wilson have been thinking to myself, okay, what's my BATNA? What's my BATNA? What am I refusing? What's my bottom line that I'm not going to pass? And also thinking about the grace and the eloquence with which he taught us some really hardcore and fundamental principles, and the love that he had for all of us and just for the work that he's doing. I use those all the time, and I often am finding myself saying, okay, what would Dr. McCabe do in this situation? And it has helped me definitely. So I'm so honored and happy to invite you to the podium to say a few words.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Wow. Thank you so very much. But I want to take this opportunity to say that this is really an honor for all of the faculty who taught your wonderful, wonderful cohort. And in closing, I'm just going to say one word. Your cohort rocks.
It is now my pleasure to introduce 2 distinguished guests for reflections. Dr. Darren Woodruff, Chair of the DC Public Charter School Board, who is also a Senior Director of Education at the DeBruce Foundation Research Institute, where he focuses his role of schools and education in transforming underserved communities. In addition, we will also hear reflections from Chancellor Antoine Wilson of DC Public Schools, who this year has launched a capital commitment and an ambitious 5-year plan to ensure that every school guarantees that each student will reach its full potential through the rigor of curriculum and a joyful learning experience provided in a nurturing environment. We'll first hear from Chair Woodruff.
Wow, do we not have some wonderful school leaders here in the District of Columbia? We do. Thank you, Kimberly. Thank you, Jacob. And thanks and congratulations to all of you. And good morning. As you heard, my name is Darren Woodruff. I'm the chair of the DC Public Charter School Board. And as many of you already know, our board provides oversight to 120 pre-K through 12th grade and adult public charter schools. I am truly, truly honored to be here today to celebrate you, the graduates of the EML Leadership Program. And I also want to acknowledge our Executive Director, Scott Pearson, as well as many other good friends of charter schools are here. So thank you for coming out this morning. Today marks yet another milestone in all of your lives. A moment you'll remember forever, and I, along with your families, your professors here, and each of your schools are extremely proud of your hard work and all the extra time and the late evenings and everything you've done as part of this program. I have to say, I've been on the board, 8-9 years now, the charter board, and the education system, although we always say and we always know that we still have much work to do, we've really come a long way. Since the start of public charter schools way back in 1996. I think I was a graduate student at that time, actually, still at Howard University. DC was an education system that was once characterized by a lot of out-of-date buildings, decreasing student enrollment at that time, and some of the nation's lowest test scores. And now I'm so pleased and so happy and proud to say that we have two strong public school sectors, both the charter and the traditional public schools. And as a parent myself of one child in the public schools, Banneker, and another child at a charter school, we all know that families just want good schools for their children. We really, these sectors are language that we use, but really what we're trying to do is have the strongest system so that everyone can have a great education. So I am thrilled to be here representing the charter board, but I'm even more thrilled to celebrate what is clearly a strong class of leaders, regardless of what the sector is. So congratulations. And this graduation is a shining example of how those two sectors, charter and traditional schools, are working collaboratively for the good of all of our students. Because of this, education quality and choice is continuing to increase. And we can see it, the community can see it, parents can see it, and I hope the students can see it. I believe it's bringing back families who once weren't considering district schools and keeping them in the city, and more importantly, keeping them in our public schools. This transformation could not have happened without the commitment of dedicated school leaders like yourselves. It's because of you that students are achieving and can compete on a national level. You're on the ground, you're working hard and working together to tackle some of the hardest issues in urban education, and that is no small feat. Collaboration, as we know, is not always easy, but it's necessary, and I think Kaya said that as well. That's the secret sauce is us working together regardless of what schools we represent. Excuse me, so that we can ensure that every student receives a quality education. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you work for a public charter school or a traditional public school. What matters is that we find solutions and ideas that help every student succeed. So thank you for devoting your time and effort over the past, 11 months? Over the past 11 months to not only further your education, but to work with each other to learn best practices and how to navigate some of the toughest problems you may face when running your schools. And you're doing this all while continuing to lead your schools, which I know isn't easy. And I'm sure you've made friendships that you'll continue to tap into for years to come. So after today, you'll return to your everyday life and continue to apply what you've learned. And I know it may not be as easy to have discussions and work and collaborate and talk to one another since you'll no longer be meeting regularly in class, but I do have an important ask for each of you. Do not allow today to be the end of your dialogue, of your conversations about improving education here in the district. Continue to push each other and use one another as resources. Continue to work together to make DC the best place in the country to receive an education. So thank you for allowing me and my colleagues to celebrate this occasion with the trustees, your trustees, faculty, staff, parents, special guests, and thank you for your steadfast commitment to DC students. So congratulations, school leaders, you did it. Thank you so much.
Good day. I am extremely excited to have a few moments to share a few words with you, and I promise to be brief, because one of the things I've learned after having an opportunity to participate in a few graduation ceremonies is that most people don't remember anything that I say. So I'm going to just say just a few things just really quickly. In DCPS, our goal is that our students would feel loved, challenged, prepared to positively influence society and thrive in life. And I was excited listening to the speeches in here because I heard several times people mention the word love. I know the power of love can make a tremendous difference in terms of whether or not a student believes that they can make it to the finish line or not. I know going into a school building and having adults believe in you and express abilities that they see that you have that you don't see in yourself can make a difference. I know that when you're filled with doubt and you have a school leader that is inspiring you to try things that maybe you never thought you could do, or in fact never saw anyone that was in your immediate circle experience, it can do powerful things. I can tell you as a young person, many of you lead elementary schools as a young person, what was normal for me was to be in a different elementary school every year. But I was fortunate in that experience because most of the time I found myself in the class of someone who had high expectations, who got to know me, knew my family, wasn't afraid to say that they had spoken to my mother, and expected me to be successful. Now, I've had an opportunity to visit several schools here in DCPS and meet with the leaders here, and I can tell you that the leaders in this city are tremendous. You represent the best of what the city has to offer. Now, having an opportunity to meet with leaders all around the country, I can tell you that if you're the best that we have, you are in fact the best that the country has. So my message to you is really simple. In DCPS, we have a value. It's the value of courage. It's just quite simple, that we will have the audacity to learn from our successes and failures, to try new things, and to lead the nation as a proof point of PK-12 education. What I would say to you is just simple. Don't wait, lead. You know what you should be doing in order to ensure that every one of your students is successful. You know what to do in order to ensure that those young people, when they experience challenges, know that there are people there who support them and will help them be successful. You understand that you'll be faced with challenges and many times have to do things where it feels like you're alone. But if you continue to do the work that you're doing, you've committed to do together, continue to lean on each other, show the rest of the city that we should spend less time putting barriers between each other and sectors and more time focusing on our collective efforts to ensure that young people get what they deserve, which is an education, then we can be that proof point in the country. I know that real change happens at the school level. In school buildings, in classrooms, in principals working with their teachers, their parents, and making sure that young people get what they deserve. I'm excited to be here. I appreciate everyone that was part of making this event possible for these educators. I look forward to learning from your example as you lead this city forward. Thank you for your time and effort. Thanks for giving me an opportunity to speak here today.
Thank you, Chair Woodruff and Chancellor Wilson, for sharing your thoughts and perspective on the EML program. It is my sincere honor to present to you Paul Almeida, William R. Berkeley Chair and Dean of the McDonough School of Business. He will now address the class.
I apologize, one more speech. And I couldn't possibly compare with most of the speeches before me, especially the ones over there. So graduates, or soon-to-be graduates from Georgetown anyway, colleagues, family and friends, today is about celebration. That's why we're here with these funny hats and these ornate robes in this historic hall. It's almost like a Harry Potter book or movie, right? But it's not a fairy tale. It's something much better than that. Because this is about your achievement, about your hard work, about the community you formed. This is about real things which are going to make a huge difference to each other and to society. And this is a real reason to celebrate. So to our graduates, congratulations. Firstly, your class is historic. To my mind, this is the first known educational partnership among public and charter schools. And this is absolutely wonderful. And we want to thank the leaders of both systems for making this possible and embracing this opportunity to form a community of people who just want to make a difference to the children of our city. So thank you so much. Thank you. Now, I'm sure the journey was fun, and you've gained a lot of friends, but I'm sure it was not always easy. Late nights, probably, and very early mornings. And I'm sure you thought you were past homework until January this year. And this time we were grading you, and that changes things. I don't know if Professor McCabe still does high-speed deliverables, does he? Yeah. And he still won the Best Professor Award. That says something, you know. But you're going to have so much time on your hands now. Families, please take note. You can just load up everything onto them from now on. But more seriously, through all this, you grew with each other, and I can see closer to each other. You've grown in terms of skills, tools, techniques, but I think from what I heard, most of all, you grew in terms of wisdom. You know, we called upon you to work across sectors, to identify challenges and create solutions, and you didn't disappoint. You know, for our guests, I think you know this, but they tackled important, complex issues, you know, like increasing and encouraging school attendance, at-risk mobility and school choice, safe passage to schools, and how to elevate immigrant integration into public education. We know these are topics with no easy solutions, but we know we have the best people to actually start on our journey, explore our approach to finding these solutions. And for this, I thank you. You know, I remember 5 years ago, Kaya Henderson stood on the stage, and by the way, she made all of us cry. And she told the first cohort to be change makers. You indeed are change makers, and for this, we celebrate. Yes, as many of the speakers noted, we live in uncertain times, times that cry out for honest and decent leadership. And so, while I was watching you as people spoke, it filled me with gratitude to be able to see, even in the most difficult times, there is a future. There are people who are dedicated and passionate and determined to make a difference. There are people who see leadership in themselves, not necessarily with those with titles and supposed power. And I really believe this is how we're going to make a difference. You know, I moved around a lot as a kid. You know, I was in a military family, and literally, wherever they went, they'd just dump me in the nearest Jesuit school. And I learned a lot from the Jesuits. They also gave me my first drink ever, but that's a different story. And one of the priests, he was a Swiss-German priest, he used to make us do little experiments. And I'm not sure how well you know India, but it's a place where class and caste really segregate society. You don't, you know, it's amazing. You know, good people, but accepting of differences which should never be accepted. And he used to make us do things like, okay, now you go out, you know, in your tie and your blazer with your parents, and go and try to book a room in a hotel with money. All of us could do that. And then he made us wear, you know, the local Indian kurta pajama, put dirt between our nails, and go out with a villager, you know, who didn't speak English or, you know, any language really well, and go and try to book the same hotel room with money. And most of us failed. And we were taught that we need to walk in other people's shoes. I learned that we need to see the world from other people's eyes. I learned that even though I tried, there was amazing amount still to learn and still to explore and still to discover, and that we've never reached there. It's a continuous journey. Our search to serve the common good is a continuous journey. If you even look today, what is the 1%? I find it easy to rail against the 1%, even though I'm probably in the 1%. But you know something? We are all in the 1%. Look at what the 1% of salary in the world is today. It's $32,000. And look at our times. If you look through history, it's even more dramatic. We're probably the 1% of the 1%. If you look in terms of healthcare, and if you talk, yes, we have fights to fight. And yes, we have challenges even at home. And yes, we've all been underprivileged in different ways. And yes, my grandfather was an orphan, so most of us are not very far from people who knew real poverty. But we have to also remind ourselves that we should be filled with gratitude, because in many ways we're privileged. And if the 1% is not privileged, and if the 1% doesn't have a duty to make a difference to society, who does? So, one of the wonderful things about being at Georgetown is we have legitimacy now. People know Georgetown throughout the world. They respect us. You were a part of Georgetown. People know that we have tools and techniques and ability. We have amazing network in 120 or 150 countries. We have an incredible opportunity to make a difference, yes, in our schools and far beyond. And so my plea to you is to take on this responsibility and don't restrict yourselves, as so many other speakers said before. We have a great chance to continuously seek opportunities, to explore, never to be frightened of failure, to be able to see how we can continue to make a difference to serve the common good. For, really, if you think of it, who or what is Georgetown? Yes, it's these wonderful faculty and great staff. Yes, it's beautiful buildings like this on a campus on a hilltop. But really, Georgetown is the alumni out there across all these countries who on a daily basis are defining who we are, what a Hoya is. That is Georgetown. And we have to remember that and embrace that. So, just want to say, we're really glad you were here, but we will miss you. So, wherever life takes you, please come home. Come home by continuing to work with your students and ours and all your fellow alumni. Come home for referrals, for contacts and advice. Come home to share your expertise as teachers and guest lecturers. Come home to meet your colleagues, old and new. Come home to remind us sometimes and enrich who we are together. Or come home just to say hello. Come home, we'll be waiting, we'll keep the lights on. For you are a Hoya, you are a part of Georgetown, you define Georgetown now and forever. And for this, we celebrate. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean Almeida. Before we begin the presentation of degree candidates, I would ask if we recognize the contributions made by faculty and staff who have been diligent partners here at the McDonough School of Business. As students, each of us have studied and have been challenged and sought opportunity and counsel from all of our full-time and part-time faculty. Therefore, I ask you to rise and join me in expressing your sincere appreciation for the administration and our faculty. We will now call forward the 2017 candidates for the executive degree in Masters in Leadership. Paul Almeida. We're going to ask the entire audience to hold your applause until the end when all candidates have returned to their seats. Dean Almeida, Professor Bees, and McCabe move forward. Kimberly Martin. Jacob Lappy. Eric Bethel. Letitia Coleman. Inde Diagni. Megan Hubbard. Jada Langston. Makia Love. Juan Carlos Martinez. Jacques Patterson. Tania Pritchard. Catherine Procope. Justin Ralston. Sunday Riggins. Karen Rivas. Cynthia Robinson Rivers. Courtney Stafford. Megan Roman. Brittany Wagner Friel. Eugenia Young. Dean Almeida, it is my honor to present the aforementioned candidates for the degree of Executive Masters in Leadership. Will the candidates please rise? These candidates have been duly examined by the faculty and approved by the Board of Directors. I therefore ask that you bestow on them the degrees in course.
By virtue of the authority vested in me by the Congress of the United States and by the President and Board of Directors of Georgetown University, I officially confer upon the aforementioned candidates the degree of Executive Masters in Leadership. Congratulations.
So sweet. Before I bid the graduates what I hope to be as a temporary goodbye from the hilltop, I would like for the graduates to turn around in Georgetown fashion. Turn around. And salute the families, the friends, the daughters, the sons, the husbands, and the wives for all of your support. You can be seated. Thank you all for joining us today, and congratulations to our graduates. We wish you all well. As Paul mentioned, we hope you come back often. We will keep the lights on. We wish you the best in your future endeavors, and remember, you are now proud Georgetown alum. We'll ask Father Kemp to come and offer the benediction.
No script. A lot is said when charters and publics come together. This has been, for all of us, an opportunity to give thanks for coming together in a sustained sort of way where each feeds one another. The apostle said the greatest of these is love. Others have said, and you've felt, the toughest is hope. You have not only engaged in the audacity of hope, but you put it to work each and every day. For this we give thanks, and in the old-fashioned, we're on our way to a reception in Hariri, a building, and we need to lift a glass. We've had enough holy water from the eyes. Let's throw down a little water and maybe even, I don't even know what's over there, but I hope we get a shot. In the old Catholic style, bless us, O Lord, and these thy gifts, which we are about to receive from your bounty. We pray this in your name. Amen? Amen. Hope.
Will the guests please remain standing in your places and the faculty and graduates until the faculty and graduates have recessed? You're all invited to join us for the reception at the Fisher Colloquium in the Rafiki Hariri building. The ushers will direct you to the building. It is now my great pleasure to close the Executive Masters in Leadership commencement.